and welcome to the Game Informer Show. I am your host, Andy McNamara. Today's show is... This one's bittersweet, folks. This one's bittersweet. So, today, yesterday, or this week, let's go with this week, I announced that this is my last week at Game Informer. So, unfortunately, this is also my last time hosting the Game Informer Show. I'd like to say hosting because I hope that the wonderful people here at Game Informer will invite me back, which I'm guessing I might have an in. I might know a couple people around here that I could text and say, hey, can I come on the show? But joining me today to discuss a lot of topics is Andy Reiner. How you doing, Andy?
I am good. That's the first time you ever called me Andy.
I know.
It really is the end of an era.
It is. Well, you know, someone made the joke. There always has to be an Andy in charge of Game Informer. So I'm just kind of following that up a little bit. But yeah, I saw someone on Twitter say, I didn't know Reiner had a different name than Reiner.
That was Michael Pachter. I've known him for hilarious. 2 decades, and dude doesn't know my name.
Doesn't know your name.
All right.
You gotta look at it the other way. That you had gone far enough down the Madonna hole that people didn't. They thought you were just Reiner. That you just had the one. You just had the one name. You were like Sting, Madonna. You know.
Yeah, it's gonna make my life complicated moving forward, I would assume. But yeah, you know, it's kind of cool to just have that. I should do a symbol next, like Prince did.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? You can always go down to get your name changed. You could legally change it to one name. You could be that guy. You never know. You got to think about it. You got to think about it.
Just be a colon, just 2 dots. That's it.
Also on the show, we have Ben Reeves. How you doing, Ben?
Good. I prefer to go by Andy now.
Okay. All right. Hey, Reiner.
Wait a minute.
I think he's trying to take your job.
Here?
I think that's what's happening here. And then finally, Leo Vader. It's been too long, Leo. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you? What a wild day. What a weird podcast we have coming up.
Oh, it's going to get weird. Yeah, it's going to get weird.
Let's get into the weird.
Let's get into the weird. So,
and positive and good.
And the positive. And the positive. You know, so
and sad.
So let's set the table here. I think there's a lot to talk about here. Number one is, you know, I have to thank everyone for letting me host the show. I started October 31st last year. And Ben Hansen was like, man, take over the show. And I was like, Ben, I don't know. And I was a little scared, but it's been so much fun. It's really a fun show to do. It's a little scary and it's a lot of work. And I wish I could give it even more work when I worked on it, but it's a lot of fun. This is a great show. I love the Game Informer show. 507th episode right now. And obviously, you know, I think it can go on forever. So that's my endorsement of the show. But this show is definitely interesting in that there is a lot to announce. So not only my own departure from Game Informer, and by the way, this is complete coincidence, but also Leo Vader has decided to venture out and do something new. Is that correct, Leo?
That's correct. Video editors only stay at Game Informer for 3 years for some reason. And I remember joining and seeing that pattern and being like, that's weird. Why would anybody ever leave this place? And of course, there is still some part of me that wonders that. But
yes.
It's a lot of things are lining up in my life for it to seem like the perfect time to go try something new on my own. So youtube.com/Leo Vader. If you'll lend me your sub.
You know, Leo has always been a character and super funny. I remember being at E3 when you were back and you did the basically science version of E3 grading, and I was at parties, like I would go hide in the corner and laugh trying to listen to your antics about the show, and people would come up to me and go like, "That Leo guy, he's so funny." So Leo is quite the comedian and a great video technician, and so you know, obviously we're super sad to hear that news. You know, and kind of it's so weird that it's compounding with my own, which we're also going to bring up later in the show. We are going to have another guest, which is Matthew Kato, who we've worked with forever. I mean, I worked with him in so long ago. It's not even funny. And that's just the history of things. But he as well has decided to move on. He's got a new adventure as well. So just a lot of new adventures going on here, and
all coincidences.
All coincidence. It's just kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's weird.
It is definitely. And by the way, Poor Reiner. Reiner's the one that has to do. We're all like, hey, Reiner, hey, we all came up to the same decision at the same time. Bye. And so Reiner, while getting, when I talk about bittersweet, he's like, I'm editor-in-chief. Oh my God. I got stuff to do. But that's also
there's fire.
I also think that's super exciting though, because I know Reiner's going to go out there and find a great group of writers. And Reiner, Reiner, I'd like to point out too, I've worked with Reiner forever. I met Reiner when I was working at Funko Land, and he came in as a customer. And that's when I used to work with Paul Anderson, who is no longer with us, not just with Game Informer, I mean of this earth, unfortunately. Rip Paul, loved him, still love him.
Yeah, great dude. And one of the early Game Informer people, the pro player. And when it came time when I finally became editor, he's like, we're looking for our first hire. We're like, we're gonna hire some people. He was like, we gotta hire that Reiner kid, man. He knows his games, right? And I was like, all right, Paul. All right, well, let's have him come in and try something. And Reiner wrote something for us, and I think we published that. And then back in the day when people used to work for free, I worked for free too. You guys didn't edit. You didn't edit my piece or see if I could write, but you published it.
yeah. I mean, we were running. I mean, things were a little crazy back then.
Yeah.
And then we were like, yeah, let's hire that kid. He knows some stuff about comic books and other things too. That might be useful. No one is better prepared to take this on. I think Reiner will find some unique voices out there and get some new video teammates to make it more exciting. So that's that change. And then, okay, are you ready? In the sea of change that we are going through right now, who is going to host this show, the Game Informer
You'll never
show?
guess. You'll never guess.
Let's see. All right, there's 4 boxes here. Leo's leaving. Andy's leaving. Reiner has a ton of work now. Who's going to do it? Would that be you?
Jeff Keighley.
Hey, bring him in, everybody.
Ben Reeves, congratulations. It's exciting.
Thanks. Yeah, you pulled me and Reiner in. You were like, one of you guys is going to be the new EIC and one of you will be the new podcast host. And I was really hoping to be the new editor-in-chief, actually. But I guess I'll take podcast host.
But Reiner touched his nose first, and that's just how it
goes. He's
goes.
like, dibs. I was like, God dang it.
Well, we had that one chair in the room and the music was playing. We wanted to see who got it first.
Yeah, musical chairs.
And Reiner, I mean, let's just put it this way. He put a shoulder into Reeves that you would not believe. Like Reiner, you don't know it, but he's got some power in there.
Just in my shoulders. Yeah. Just the shoulders. These don't have much to them.
Well, you built it up from all those years playing games, right?
Yeah.
It's just like the whole arm. You're ready to go. So Ben, the street comedian, there was a time when you first started and we used to go out to things. I went to a manager's conference for GameStop where we had a booth for Game Informer, and a bunch of people kept coming up to me and they're like, where's Ben Reeves? Is Ben Reeves here? I'm like, we're from Atlanta. We love Ben in Atlanta. And I heard it 10 times and I was like, something is going on in Atlanta with Ben Reeves because they love Ben Reeves in Atlanta, and it's been the thing that's stuck with me ever since. So finally, the street comedian Ben, much loved in Atlanta, your show, and with that, I am going to hand the virtual baton over to you, our new host of the Game Informer show, Ben Reeves. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I did finally make it to the managers convention. It took 12 years, but I went this last year, and I don't know where Atlanta was. They didn't come up and say hi. Maybe they were scared. They were intimidated.
They maybe were. They probably.
Do you
were.
want to look in your camera and just say something to Atlanta? I mean, they're probably out there.
Atlanta, I love you. Atlanta, I'm coming for you.
That's what he wanted to tell you at the managers conference.
Yeah, I'm a nice guy. Come up, buy me a drink. I'd be happy. Well, yeah, thanks, Andy. Obviously, we're all sad to see you go. I don't know if you remember, but the first time we met was my interview. I had been coming from Colorado. I'd never been to Minnesota before. Flew in that day, rented a car, got lost on the way to the office.
No way, you got lost on the way to the office?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh,
yep.
That's weird.
I was an hour late and called you. I was like, hey, I don't know where I am. And you're like, you're not anywhere close to where you're supposed to be. And then I was still super late. It should have taken me 5 minutes to get there. from there, and it still took me like another half hour. So I don't know if you remember that, but you were very, very cool. I thought I had totally like blown it and didn't get the job before I'd even had the interview, but you were so cool about it, and so cool because you offered me the job. Like that's what I am especially
really ultimately
impressed by. So, but thank you for giving me a shot.
Yeah, we could see your grace under pressure right there, right? You know, like that things had gone awry, and you held it together
somehow. But yeah, to display more grace, I got super lazy. Like this is what you guys can expect from being a host. I reached out to my fellow coworkers to ask them, like, "Hey, Andy's leaving. What would you guys ask them?" So I kind of compiled a bunch of questions. Here's one from Jeff Cork, if you know him. Super funny guy.
Jeff Cork. Yeah,
he's one of your employees. Yeah, you might remember.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll write the name down. I got to remember this. I got to write the name down.
Yeah, you might want to take some notes right now. He has a really impressive beard. Anyway, he wants to know what you consider, Andy, to be the most interesting person in games. Aside from yourself.
God, Reiner, you're right. You know what, Reiner? You might be, and by the way, this is not because you aren't interesting. You might be the least interesting because we have been like shoulder to shoulder, even though you're super powered shoulder, for so long that I know you far too well for you to be interesting to me anymore, and vice versa. I'm sure you're like, yeah, whatever, McNamara. I've heard all your stories.
You know, on that comment, I realized, you know, when you said you're leaving, and it was yesterday. When you announced it officially, like publicly, that it really sunk in for me. I realized that I have been with you my entire adult life since I've been 17.
I know.
It's crazy.
It sounds creepy when you put it that way, by the way, a little bit.
So as you depart, you never know. I might be a stalker. You might see me outside your window.
Yeah.
You know, you see, you turn your head and then I'm gone.
Well, you know,
I will be memories from those old days.
We're not answering.
We have tons.
We have tons. We have definitely lots of things that we can reminisce about. Like there's a lot. I mean, I think, let me try to answer Cork's question.
Yeah. Sorry.
Let me try to answer Cork's question because there's definitely old stories you can tell. The most interesting person in games. You know, that's a really difficult question. I think. What I find maybe the most interesting people that I meet are I just love meeting creative leads and creative people in the game space, and I'm definitely kind of copping out a little bit here with my answer because I don't really have like just one, but like when I get a chance to sit down with someone who's making a game and really just kind of get where they're coming from. Like those are my favorite conversations in the world, right? And they can happen anywhere. They can happen like maybe they come and visit us, maybe we're there doing a story, or maybe just like run into them somewhere and be like, hey, you want to go have coffee and just sit down and talk games with them. Like I find it fascinating because I find it so educational. Like every time I sat down with a lot of people, I walked away going like I learned something. You know, and I mean that goes across everywhere. Like I remember when I met Todd Howard for the first time. I went to Bethesda and I was like, what is this weird place? Oh my gosh, we're going in this basement. Who's this guy? Okay, hey, what's going on, Todd? And he was just like super nice, and then just started telling me about how he makes games and why he makes games and what he wants to make games do and where he thinks games are going. And this is, you know, before, you know, they had blown up with Oblivion and everything like that. And I was just like, wow, this is super fascinating. And I like left having learned so much about games, just having spent some time with someone who like really is, you know, one of the many creative geniuses in games, right? And that same thing holds true for like Ken Levine. Like I talking to him, learning about what he did. I actually met Ken the first time. I didn't even know who he was. I was waiting at an event and this guy was there and he just started kind of talking about all these games and what he was mad about. And I was like, I like ranting about games. Let's rant about games, you know, and like just kind of started like riffing with him. And then later I was like, oh, I didn't know you made that game. That's a cool game. Oh, you know, and like I think that's what's fun. When I met Will Wright, when I met Tim Schafer, all those things are all memories I have, right? Like it's just like hard not to have those. I feel like I'm missing something. When I met Ed Boon, It's like, oh gosh, I should have prepared more for this. But like when you get a chance to meet these people who at the time, like I met Ed Boon when he was making Mortal Kombat, right? Like way back when, and you're like, hey, that's a crazy game. Why are you doing that? I met Jason Rubin, eventual like founder of.
Is going to be everybody? Is that what I'm getting? Yeah.
It's going to be everybody. I mean, like, I just don't know. I just think like, I like all the people that I've met are always so great, right? That's what my answer is. I know it's a total cop out, but just there's so many great people that I've had a chance to talk to and I think are interesting, right? By the way, I could do this forever.
Yeah.
I really could sit here and just like list names of people in the game industry, because the game industry is full of so many very smart people that do so many amazing things. I feel like every year I'm astounded and amazed by what they accomplish.
Yeah, that's well put. I definitely agree wholeheartedly. I also reached out to Jeff Ackervik. He's our production head. He's the guy who lays out the magazine. You probably haven't seen his face around, obviously, if you're listening to this, but he's a very important part of the company. He wanted to know what's the worst GI cover. His two ideas were X-Men Legends, Wolverine's Revenge, or the Star Trek Online cover. So what do you think is the worst cover we've ever put together? And hopefully don't say all of them.
Oh,
well, I mean, the dinosaur cover is
further.
Yeah, the dinosaur cover is the worst cover. There's just no way around it. The dinosaur cover is the worst cover. I all respect to the people I worked with at the time, I was like embarrassed that we did it. It was like I was like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. I argued against it. It was kind of maybe one of those early learnings of like, you're not in charge yet, McNamara, shut up kind of thing. And I was like, okay, let's do it. We're gonna get mocked for it. And I felt like we did get mocked for it. I feel like we get mocked for it
today
to this day about it. And the funny thing is that was like there was slides, this like dinosaur company, because it's not even really about a game. This company that gave us these slides for these dinosaurs, because by the way, when you got screenshots back in the day, you literally got a slide and you you'd put it in a slide scanner and you would scan it into the computer and it was like, oh wow, what are we gonna do with this giant 168K file, right? Like it was ridiculous. And we somewhere along the way, like we lost those slides, and that museum or whoever we got them from like was just pissed, and they kept sending us letters like, get us our slides back. And we're like, dude, we're the only people in the world that would do a dinosaur cover, so back off, live without your slides. But they just kept coming. It drove me crazy. It was just insane. But yeah, that's my least favorite cover.
Do you have one you're most proud of?
If it's like asking me what my favorite kid was or favorite kid is. I don't have any kids, but if I did, I try to love them all and shit, but there's certainly ones that are like that stand out. When I was cleaning out my office last weekend, I stopped numerous times and looked at some covers and I went, damn, that was a good cover. I think that was a good cover. In particular, in this particular time, the ones that stood out to me was, the work that Sam Spratt did multiple times, our VR cover and our 25th anniversary for PlayStation are amazing. He's so talented. He's super nice, and like I can't believe we were ever lucky enough to work with him. I really like the Outer Worlds, our Mario cover that we did the last couple years ago, Super Mario Wii U. That cover's just like I'd not thought about it in a long time, and then I picked it up and I looked at it and I was like, wow, that is so good. Our Zelda Breath of the Wild cover that you have behind you right there, Ben, is a fantastic one. Some of them I like more because of like what they mean. I still love when we switched to we had the biggest format I think we ever had when we had the PlayStation 2 on our cover. It was just cool to have a white cover with PlayStation 2. That one means a lot to me. It's not our best cover art because it was like just like anyone could use that art, but I love that cover for its own reasons. God, I mean, I'll say this. One of the things that mattered to me at Game Informer was I wanted to put cool art on the cover. And I have another story for you, by the way. Paul Anderson, who I mentioned earlier, he eventually became the circulation manager at Game Informer. And we had made the decision to not put a bunch of stuff on our cover. Like we did for a while, but then we were like, hey, let's just put the art on there. The art's cool. Let's do it. And we did it, and Paul flew off to go to this like magazine circulation convention that he was at. And there was a guy who there was a special, meeting seminar about covers and how you make a good cover. And the guy, they went through and they were like, your cover is a menu. You have to put all these menus on them and use words like free. Use things like this. Like, this is how you make good magazine covers. And then they were like, at the end, they were like, hey, anybody, why don't you just tell me, like, show me a copy of your magazine and I'll tell you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And like Paul goes, here's mine, which was just a complete blank, just the art cover. And they were like, this is everything wrong with cover design, and it was like, thanks. Of course, and then we went on to be, the third largest consumer magazine in the country. So I always love that one. We do it wrong, but I think we do it right because we make the cover matter, we make the games matter, and that's what mattered, and that's what we focused on. And the arguments we had at Game Informer were like, should we put the name on there or not? Will people know what it is? I think we'll put the name on there because we're not sure if people will know what it is. But if people knew what the game was, we would not even put the name of the game on there. So yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy. So I love the covers. I think the covers is like one of the most important things I ever was a part of at Game Informer, was how we came to that decision and then that we executed it like we did. And I think it was a thing that people remember Game Informer for.
I talked to JV Gwaltney as well. He didn't really have a question for you, but he thought it was an interesting memory. He remembers that every time you would walk faster when you passed Elise's desk, because Elise had like some kind of scary clown figure on her desk. Is that sound familiar?
It's true. Yes, she has a terrifying clown on her desk, or did, I should say. We haven't been to an office with her. Of course she did. The thing is terrifying. So he's right. Yeah, no. Elise, who we were so excited, she's so great, so talented, amazing. And then I was like, oh, you're all settled in. What is that horrible thing? And she loved it. And there it was, that clown. I'm sure JV can get supplies with a photo for you to put up here, but it's terrifying. I'm gonna be like,
we should find that.
I'm old, scary clowns is a thing, right?
Yeah, that thing might be in the mail though. You might not be getting a photo of it because could be heading to your new residence, Andy.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you right now,
as a housewarming gift.
If I'm given the option, I will throw it away. Just to be clear, I find it that terrifying. No offense to Elise, but that's what's happening. She should know better. She should protect it because I want nothing to do with it.
All right, Kyle Hilliard also had a fun memory. He actually keeps a running list of all the games that you mispronounce during meetings.
Oh God,
which is funny. And I'm not going to read them all out because I don't think I can, but just some of them are Metroid Fun Balls, Blade and Souls and Blades. I'm not going to read that one. Near Automata Tadata Meet Eye, Splinter Cellular, Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Butthole, The Walking Dead Mick-Oni, and let's see, and the Hearthlocker, which I think is Hearthstone. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that might have been a play on. That might have been a play.
I don't even think
Hearthlocker.
Andy could pronounce it right now.
And I think the one was Automatopoeia, right? Isn't that what the thing is? But yeah,
Automata. Yeah, it's just fun that it. Obviously, we'd always laugh during some of those meetings, and you'd pronounce stuff. But what was it? Just because it was funny, or why would you do that?
I would just get wrapped up in a lot of stuff. And sometimes, hey, look, and this is a theme. Sometimes when someone, when there's a name of a game and then it has colon and then it has that descriptor that comes after it, I kind of tend to think most times those are dumb, right? So I'm kind of mocking them, and I just don't want to think about them or remember them. They're just not that important to me. So I kind of just file them away, and then I'm like, oh, it's that game. You know what I'm talking about. It's got this horrible add to it. So that's a lot of it. I think the one you didn't want to say was Friday night at Freddy's.
Yeah,
Freddy's. That's one. That's because I can't remember the name of that game because I played it for 3 seconds. It has clowns in it, right? Which I don't like, and so I was like, honestly, F that game. I hate that game, and so the name I used in that particular instance was one because I hated that game. And it just wasn't for me. I don't think I should say I hate the game. It just wasn't for me, and so I was mocking it. And everyone laughed at that one, certainly. You know,
and it was
like, you know, the name that I said.
Yeah, I'm prepared to write down the time code.
I believe I called it. No, this you can't. This we just can't do. I can't even like mouth this. This was offensive. This was offensive.
Okay, fair enough.
You know, like we don't want to do that.
The one that you always drove me nuts with, like in the early years of Darksiders, you would call it Darkstalkers every time.
I did that all the time. I did that
every time.
Because my mind thinks dark. I was thinking of the Capcom classic.
Yeah.
And then it's funny because there's more games come along that have those same kind of like 7 different words interchanged. I screw them up all the time. 100%.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to read off everything that like everybody emailed me, but got a lot of stuff. Maybe I can share some other time, but I do want to read this one from Nick Aarons. If you remember him, he was an old video producer. Like he wore kind of a lot of hats. I don't know what his official title was, but Nick wrote in, he said, Andy, you've been fortunate enough to spend a pretty lengthy amount of time watching the industry grow as an always watching observer. What are some of the trends that you absolutely saw coming from a long ways off? And what are some of the trends that you never thought in a million years would ever happen?
I can answer the last one.
Well, I thought I made fun of CD-ROM back in the day, if that's what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
That is definitely one. I was wrong, by the way. It's a long time ago, but
the actual quote, it was from your letter from the editor.
Yeah, CD-ROM, not my wave.
Yeah, they say CD-ROM technology is the wave of the future. Not my wave.
Not my wave, baby. Not my wave.
I remember when I started, you had just come around on like Guitar Hero games. Apparently you were pretty down on Guitar Hero and you made fun of the first game, but then you really got into it. And then you were like, oh yeah, Guitar Hero is awesome.
I got into the original. I maybe mocked them at the beginning just because, you know, we had people doing karaoke in the other room and everything like that. Like that was a time as music games were coming, you know, to a head.
And it's a dumb looking guitar thing.
Yeah,
before you
looked like a kid's toy.
Dumb.
Yeah. No, but I got into the very first Guitar Hero. It just at the beginning, I certainly was mocking some people. I mean, we all kind of rib each other at the office a little bit, right? And I'd also like to clear out on the CD-ROM thing. It's because I liked how fast things loaded from the Nintendo. I'd like to make sure I'm not left without my reasoning. I liked cartridges. I grew up on cartridges, and I liked the fact that you put a game in and it worked. And it was complete, and there was no downloading of extra stuff, and you played it, and then you beat it, and you took it out, and you threw the cartridge on the ground, and if you wanted to play it again, you picked it up, you blew in it, and you put it back in, and you played it again, right? And that's what I was against.
Back in the day, when you said that, I bet 95% of readers would have been like, you're totally right, because Sega CD sucks, right? Like, Sewer Shark, you know, it was experimental technology, it didn't look like it was going anywhere.
Yeah, like
then PlayStation hit, and it was like, uh-oh. Can I get rid of that letter?
Can I get rid of that letter? Yeah, it did not age well. It did not age well because we didn't.
But at the time, yes.
Yeah, I didn't understand that CD. You know, it's one of those things that I actually think about that quote a lot because I think about how, you know, I didn't think about how it would change the way consumers got things, right? And like the way that the consumer interacted. Because ultimately, what it did is it made it where we didn't have to wait months for games to come over on a boat from Japan or wherever they were, you know, manufactured, like that you could get things done quicker and faster, and that the costs would go so much cheaper that it would make developers have more money that they could spend more money making their games. And like just the way that technology kind of steamrolled from that change that came from PlayStation, right? So I underestimated that, but you know, I was a Nintendo fanboy. What are you gonna do? Happens. But that's definitely one of the things that I underestimated. And I think that's why today I actually try not to underestimate, which I think a lot of people do, like what I think streaming will be or like, you know, cloud gaming. I mean, there's certainly moments where I'm like, this is annoying. But then I think to myself, there were times in CD-ROM where I found it annoying, right? Where I did not like this. And then, you know, move forward 10 years and you're like, oh, wow, a lot of those problems changed. And like a lot of the infrastructure and technology things changed and it made that better. And the convenience of CD-ROM or digital downloads and everything else that like came along and disrupted video games changed all that stuff. And I do think there's something there, you know, just like I still think too, like when we did our VR cover, like VR is disruptive and interesting and cool. You know what I mean? And it's going to do something. And like everyone's kind of dismissed it at times, but I'm like, I still don't believe VR is dead. I'm not going to do that CD-ROM thing again. Based on that, and in fact, yesterday I had there was someone who came into our house and they were coming to check my chimney, and the guy's like, "Oh, you're into games?" He's here in my basement where I have all my stuff, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm into games." He's like, "Yeah, I'm a VR guy." And I was like, "That's crazy!" Like, just like he's like, "I don't really play games. I just play VR games. I'm really into it. I got a Rift. I love it." I was like, "That's cool." And by the way, I have met multiple people. I was once in a bike shop, told somebody what I did, and they were like, "Yeah, I'm a VR guy. I didn't have a PlayStation. I bought a PlayStation just for PlayStation VR." And I was like, that's so cool. And I think there's people that are really big fans, and I think that there's still room for that to grow, but it has hiccups, right? There's stuff that is problems now, but can be solved in the future. Just to back
that's
up
awesome. That's perfect. Were there any like big trends you saw coming like early on in games? You're like, oh yeah, this will be big, and then it blew up?
While you think about that, Andy, I'm going to bring up one thing that a talent you had, like when we'd go into these cover story meetings, seeing a game for the first time, nobody in the world knows about it. After talking to the team and looking at it for like 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time, Andy could distill the it factor of that game, the thing that was going to make that game special immediately, like just would latch on to that and then would get excited about it, right? Like, or if it didn't have that, knew right away that the game might have some issues or some challenges ahead. That's a talent. I was always impressed by that, and that's something I learned, from Andy over the years to look for that.
Yeah, thank you, Reiner. I do think, when I was out looking for a new job, one of the things I brought up was that I have a superpower, and one of my superpowers is that like I've seen so many game demos that I feel like I can really see through what they're trying to say and what they're trying to get to in a lot of ways. And I think that makes the conversation interesting. And I think that's the other thing too. I think it's really important, whoever demos a game, like sometimes when, you're like, why are you making this game? What moves the player? What motivates me to do these things in this world? What is challenging there? And these questions I feel are like pretty basic. And we've had people that are like, I don't know. And you're like, this game is going to be a disaster, right? But I've had people come in and they understand where they're going. They understand what they're trying to do. They can bring examples of like what makes their game special, or what they're trying to do, or what their approach is that makes it unique or would make it resonate with people. And it's, to me, I think, and you start to just really pick up on that. And you're like, yeah, like there's something there, like that you can sense that. And then, another thing we often do in those meetings is we talk to them about like how they're going to do it, like how they're going to execute that. And I think you can see some people that have a real clear vision of like how they're going to like accomplish that goal.
I was thinking about too, is like, remember, like we took a shot on like BioShock early on, and nobody knew that BioShock was going to be a big deal, but we put it on our cover. Or like Dead Space, which we saw that demo and was like, nobody had heard of Dead Space before. We were like, this game, I think it's worth taking a shot on, and put it on our cover. Like, felt like we took good chances, and sometimes maybe they didn't work out, but I feel like they worked out more often than not, because you had that good sense of like, I think this game's going to work out.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, I like to bring this one up because it's recent. I think people don't like, we did Fortnite before Fortnite. Like we went and played Fortnite. I got an opportunity to play Fortnite pretty early on, and I left, and I actually spent a whole day kind of talking to the team there and trying to understand what their vision was. It was really super interesting. And I was fascinated by the game. I was like, I really think this mechanic of like build and shoot is ingenious. And we played a bunch of different games modes that never came out. Right? We played some things that I don't even know if I'm under NDA still, but I was like, I don't like these games, but I like this build and shoot mechanic. Like this is something like the moment it kind of clicked for me, I'm like, this is really, really good. And we came back and we were like, let's figure out how we can do a cover on this, because I think this game can be really big. Now, of course, what made Fortnite big was not its single player game, but ended up being battle royale. But I definitely knew there was something special in there, and they just had to figure out how to unlock it. And then when they made that battle royale in 3 months, I think there's even a podcast where I'm on it where we talk about it, and I say that very same thing, that this mechanic is gold. It just needs to find the right mode, and they found it, and it blew up. You know what I mean? And changed games. And I mean, once again, too, if you want to talk about me picking things out, I'd actually looked at an early version of a game for a kind of a friend, and played an early version of this new battle royale game that never came out. But they were like, should we do this or not? And I was like, this was in the early days of battle royale when it was kind of just hitting in just kind of like the open world games. I don't know why I'm spacing on that first one. But I was like, battle royale is going to hit. Like, someone's going to make one that's good and matters, and it's going to hit, and it's going to be big. And, because it had been going on in that kind of like DayZ kind of space. And then all of a sudden it hit in PUBG very shortly thereafter. I was like, you could see it coming. You could see it coming down the tracks. And then, PUBG led to all these other things. It was just it's a fun game to play. In that particular case, when I played that one that we were looking at, it was in gray box. So it wasn't all there yet. There was no graphics to it, but it was a lot of fun, and you're like, these are always good. I would have invested in those at that point because they were ready to go off.
Yeah. How many games do you think about that the wider gaming community doesn't have any clue exists?
Tons.
I mean, you would probably have a bunch too, right?
Yeah. I mean, Andy and I were in all those meetings together. Yeah. So
we've seen a lot of games that never came out. We put games on our cover that never came out.
That's true.
Don't forget that.
Tiberium.
Yeah. Tiberium. Fear and Respect. Yeah. I mean, certainly we have. And by the way, I always think that's sad, because I think anytime we put something on the cover, I think we did it because we thought there was a cool idea there. It just never came to fruition. And sometimes you gotta kill. Sometimes you have to get rid of some games that just don't come together, because you need to, and that's unfortunate. But I've probably seen a few.
Fair enough. Cool. Well, final question. I wanted to reach out to our community because you've been a part of their lives as well, and obviously you're leaving GI, you'll still be a part of the industry, but it'll be different for sure. And so Nick S. from Marquette, Michigan, he writes in, he said, "Hey, Andy and the Max, thank you so much for so many wonderful years. As a long-time fan of video games, Game Informer has been a part of my life. So needless to say, this has been some very bittersweet news to hear. In spirit of Andy's last episode of the Game Informer show, my question is, what is the funniest story you can think of from your time at Game Informer?" He says, "Thank you again, Andy, for all your hard work and dedication over the years. May your next endeavor be as fun, successful, and rewarding as this one has been.
And as long
from you every week." And as long, yeah.
If it's that long, oh my God. First of all, thank you for the kind note. Thanks to everyone, by the way, that left me things on Twitter, commented. Please, follow me, Real Andy Mac. I'm out there. I'm still going to talk about games. I still going to do everything I can to communicate stuff about games. I'm not done playing games or engaging in games in any way. But that's a funny question. And a hard one. The funniest thing, I don't know. I think funny, haha, might be different than what I would say is funny. One that sticks with me was when we were in Vegas and we were doing a story called Visions of the Visionaries. And it's like we tried to interview everyone that we thought was like a cutting edge game developer and like be like, hey, what's next? What do you think's next? And that was the year at DICE that Will Wright won his Lifetime Achievement Award, which he obviously very much was due. But his mom was there because her son, his Lifetime Achievement Award. This guy, Will Wright made The Sims. He's, amazing. And so we got in the elevator. We were like, oh, we got a photographer in Vegas. We're like, hey, let's go. We'll go up to like the 4th floor. I think it was like the Hard Rock Hotel. Like we'll go to the 4th floor and like their lobby area is kind of cool. Let's take a picture in there. Get out there. The photographer's kind of set up. And while we're riding in the elevator, like Will says, I don't, there's no such thing as a random number. And I was like, yep. He's like, you can never really truly have a random number. Even if you use radiation, and how erratic it is. It's not ever truly random. It will repeat. And I was like, I mean, I have no idea. By the way, I'm like, I have no idea what to say to that at all, other than like, Will Wright, you're really smart, right? And then he reaches into his pocket and he hands me, which I still have. He hands me a rock, and he goes, I bought some parts of a meteor. I'm decollecting, so I'm buying collections and I'm giving them away to everyone. And I was like, what is going on? So he was decollecting, explaining random numbers to me, and then we got out, and his mom like looks at him and like, she doesn't like his hair. She does the old mom thing where you kind of lick your fingers and then like fixes Will's hair, and then like we take a picture with him, and I was like, that was insane. So like it wasn't like funny, haha. It was just an interesting window into just this guy who had made, you know, these just genius games and just was so smart.
You were in a Wes Anderson film for a minute, it sounds like.
Yeah, it kind of was.
Yeah,
it kind of was. And I don't know, it's not funny, but it was funny just because I loved that story, and I loved how that was just an interesting moment around people who you like. Sometimes you feel smart, and then sometimes you feel real stupid. And around Will Wright, I felt real stupid.
Yeah. Andy, I'm going to build on that, by the way. This is the meteorite.
Oh, Reiner has it. There we go. I have mine too. I don't know where it is. I found it when I was cleaning up.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I got one from Will, and I have a story I'll tell you in 20 years. when I'm done.
When you're ready to retire. Sounds great. Well, Andy, thanks obviously for my career, and thank you for just being a part of Game Informer and all the joy you brought to everybody's lives and helping spread the good word about games, because games are worth playing, and it's a good job you've done. Any final parting words?
No, I mean, I just, you know, I hope, I'm sorry, I guess, to some degree, that there's been so much change at Game Informer in the last, 2 years, maybe year and a half. You know, I know we had a lot of the same people for a long time. And I think it's unfortunate that it's kind of all happened at once. You know, please keep supporting the great people here. I love everyone at Game Informer. I love the team. There's so many talented people that work here, that have worked here, by the way, that have come through Game Informer, that I am immensely proud of their work. I'm immensely in awe of their work, and I can't thank anyone or everyone here, there, anywhere, readers, people who's worked for Game Informer, our interns, people who have come through and fixed our printer, anyone that's made Game Informer possible. I can't thank you enough. The GameStop managers out there that I always thought were so much fun to talk to. They really cared about games, and good people. All the old Funko Land people. Back in the day when I was at Funko, that was like just crazy, weird, heady days. I actually rode my bike past Funko, like where it was just like a month ago in my kind of like journey to leading to this point. I rode my bike out to Eden Prairie and went to where our old office was, and I pulled up and I went like, boy, we did a lot of crazy stuff there. I took a picture too, but I never tweeted it or anything like that. But those were some good times and a lot of fun, and met so many great people. And I'm not done yet. I got something new coming. I think I'm going to I'm excited to keep, being involved with developers and being involved with like telling stories about developers. So I'm pretty excited.
Great.
So,
and what's your Twitter handle again, just so people can follow you?
I am the real Andy Mack. So you can find me online. You can say nasty things to me. I won't care. Whatever. I'd prefer if you didn't, but I don't. It's fine. It's fine.
Keep kicking ass, Andy. Like seriously, keep
thanks.
kicking ass. You do great work, and wherever you go, you got to give us all your exclusives, and if you know of any, definitely give us stuff and take care of us.
Yeah. What I'm going to have to do is it's going to be funny, Ryan. You say that now, and you're going to like change the Game Informer logo, or you're going to do some other things like that. I'm going to be like, what in the hell are you doing? And you're going to be like, you're not the boss of me, dude. And like, that's going to be that, that's the crazy part. I just like, having worked with this whole team, like every part of this magazine I'd kind of touched. And so I'm actually looking forward to see how you guys handle it and what you do. And then I just have to make sure I shut up and don't complain about any of it, because I'm just too used to being here. And so it's going to be a tough thing to break. So forgive me already, Reiner. I think you're going to do great.
No, you'll probably get an email from me going, what do you think of this logo?
I saw a prototype, actually. It's called the Real Game Informer now, which is kind of a bold choice, I think, but I don't know.
But the one thing
Game Informer minus that moron.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say is, I've learned a lot from Andy, and I'm going to carry forward that legacy. I have a chance to build something here, and I think it's going to be awesome what we're going to do in the future here. There's big plans in motion, so keep the faith. I think if I get to do what I want, it and the team does, it should be pretty cool.
Well, congrats, Andy. Congrats, Reiner. And with that, we're going to take a break.
Congrats, Ben.
Oh, and congrats me.
Yeah.
And Leo. Everybody gets some congrats.
Yeah.
With that, we'll take a break, but we'll be right back. And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm Ben Reeves. I'm joined by Matthew Kato. Welcome, sir. We also still have Leo Vader. I'm good. Thank you. And then Jeff Cork. His beard is here.
Yeah, here it is. Sorry. It is what it is. What are you going to do?
Yeah. We're continuing our sort of Heartbreak Hotel, or just continual rollout of agony. Just saying goodbye to a few people here. And even though I'm laughing, I'm sad inside. It's the only way I know how to deal with it. But Matthew Kato, you announced this week that you're also leaving Game Informer. You want to share what's happening?
I am. I've been there for over 20 years. Not as long as Andy, obviously, nor as important as Andy or as integral. But yeah, I am. Just some new challenges. It's been, as I said, it's been a long time, and it's not related to Andy's departure. It's just unfortunate, a coincidental time.
Yeah, for sure. Anything spur this on? Is this just something you're looking for, something new at this point?
Yeah, I'll still be in the industry, so it'll still be games related, which is certainly great. I'm not going to become a chartered accountant or massage therapist or anything like that. At least not. I do that for free, actually. That's just for fun. But no, I will still be in the games industry and stuff, so that'll be cool. And I'm, the thing is, I think actually, if we ever meet at E3 ever again or whatever, we can hang out and stuff. I think some of that stuff will be different for me, but it should still be great. It's still games, so it's going to be great.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think a lot of a lot of our readers are familiar with you because you're kind of our sports guy. You covered a lot of our sports stuff, but you were also a big part of our news coverage, and the front of the magazine would be kind of the section you handled a lot, rolling out news or doing good overviews of stuff. So you had a really good nose for news, let's say. And I thought, it was good to have you. You've been an institution. You've been here since I started, so it's been great to have you. Any fond
thank you. Yeah.
Any very fond memories of just working at GI?
Of course, yeah, lots of them. Even in the bad times, I'm sure one of the things, that Andy's talked about, a bunch of times is the old canceled Lord of the Rings, White Council cover story, which I did. I actually found the document, and it's not 100% complete, but I was sort of like, had the outline and I'd written it, a bunch of it, like the intro, and, I'm sure as Cork and, Ben, you'll attest to, it's like once you get that intro down and you get sort of rolling on things, kind of feel that, you've got your outline, you're like, okay, I just go from A to B to C, and then this will be great. But anyway, even when that came in, it was like, I still have kind of fond memories of that, where it was like we were to go out to holiday break, and it was shrug your shoulders, just kind of like, okay, well, I guess that's just not going to happen. And maybe in that particular instance, knowing, all the blow by blow, but knowing that there's a film studio involved, and obviously a huge company like EA involved. It just kind of, as Ben, I'm sure working on like Marvel stuff, it's like the machine is so big at that point, you're just kind of along for the ride. So you just kind of, I just kind of shrugged my shoulders and was like, well, that's that, I guess. Fortunately, we had to come back in, and it kind of caused a little bit of a rift in our holiday plans as we sort of scrambled for a cover. Yeah. And stuff like that. I mean, I just have great memories of, or around at E3. It's weird because I'm sure you guys also have a similar thing of like you're at E3, there's a zillion people, yet I always seem to run into the people I wanted to run into. You know what I mean? Where it's to the point where it's like if you're emailing people before E3, it's kind of a joke, but it's sort of serious. It's like, I'll see you at E3, and I'll just see each other. Don't worry, stop by or something. And sure enough, out of all those people just randomly walking down the halls, you just sort of see somebody,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just it's just meetings, some fun, some contentious or whatever. But it's just like there's the sort of the weird absurdity that you were arguing about video games, but also it's kind of the fun of it, of just that, like, this is what we spend our days about, and that's that's just a great aspect of it.
Yeah, for sure. I have. Speaking of E3, the first E3 I went to was the Santa Monica year, so that was the year it was spread out across hotels and super weird. There was a lot more downtime that year than I realized. In fact, I have one memory of walking down a pier with you and Miller, and we were shoe shopping because you were like shopping for shoes, which just like the idea of shopping for shoes during E3 is so stupid in my mind now. But yeah, we went swimming that year. Like that's how weird that year was. But
yeah, I think that was
a good memory.
Still pretty good. I do have a funny memory from that. It's a bad memory, but there was this person who run into before, and they were PR or for a pretty big game or whatever, and it was one of those things where they were sort of European PR, so I didn't. And they were in the room with the other developers and the other PR that I knew from like the US side. I wasn't 100% sure what their role was. They were like European PR or whatever, and we were talking to them quite a bit. At some point during the meeting before E3, I'd made a joke about PR. It's just something just simple, like devs versus PR, just whatever. It wasn't even good. And then I saw them at the Santa Monica E3, and as you do, if you're telling yourself in your head, don't mention this, of course, it just kept rolling on, like, riffing on, like, the bad joke I told from somebody, because, it was either talk about the weather or sort of bring this other thing up that I already said. And if I recall correctly, it was during that, also that Santa Monica later on, that person saw me walking, in the halls of some meeting room thing, stopped, turned around, and just went the other direction. They were just like, I'm not talking to this idiot anymore. And
that person was Jeff Cork.
No. He's pretty out front. Yeah, he just tells it to me face. He doesn't do the subtle thing. That's just one of those things where I think about it every now and again, and I cringe. But it's still a fun memory. So there you go. You got a fun embarrassment for everybody now.
You don't have like at least like 10 humiliating stories of self-inflicted defeat on your highlight reel at any given point. You haven't lived life correctly. You got to have that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I would love to just dive in. I don't think you haven't been on the podcast maybe as much as some of the other people, like especially like Andy, who's been hosting it. But I would love to dive in a little bit into your history. Like, how'd you get started at Game Informer? Like, tell people like what got you into games to begin with, and like how did you start this career path?
Well, I was into games, from the beginning, like most people was, whether it be like going to the arcades, trading the report cards for the tokens. I don't know if you guys ever remember doing that. I think it was Chuck E. Cheese, I believe, that did that. So I used to do that, and I had like Atari 2600 at home. And then even would go to my neighbor's house. He had a Apple IIe. We used to play like Bilestowed and some other things on that. But I have a weird sort of lull. So like I remember the NES. I played the NES, had one. Sort of missed SNES as much as a fan, and the only reason I probably told this story before, but I got into Genesis just because of the sports games, and it was, well, if you want to play football, then you have to play Madden, and you got to play it on the Genesis. Which, looking back, you think, well, maybe that's just one of those stories you tell, but at the time, it was true. It's like Genesis was a place for sports games. And it was also kind of a fork in the road too, because it was question of PC versus home console. I remember talking to my brother about that, of like, why am I getting sort of less powered system? And he's like, it's a lot of stuff sometimes you hear about today of like, well, you want to just put in the game, turn it on and play it. Nothing to download. There's no drivers. There's nothing to troubleshoot. This is just what this machine does. It's just about games. And so that kind of sold me on that. And in terms of GI, I had known one of the older editors, Jay Fitzloff, from a while back. He knew somebody I knew, and the late, great Paul Anderson was actually leaving from his spot. I think one of the main things was that he was the football guy. And so it was sort of a natural to me on for that, but I actually just started working for the website more than doing reviews and whatnot. And there's actually an older colleague, Justin Leeper, who also started at the same time. He actually made the transition to magazine and stuff like that. So I was always a little envious of that, while I was still just kind of like, well, you're a web editor. So even though they brought me in, I think thinking that maybe I could cover some football and whatnot, it was mainly just for the web. But as things happen in this life, I did get that job because I known somebody that brought me in. And I remember a big nervous moment for me wasn't so much necessarily meeting everybody, but Andy had asked me a spontaneous question. There was a written test. I did a bunch of that. And there was he asked me, is it it's or is it is, so which one has the apostrophe? And it's just one of those things that, obviously I know now, we all know now, whatever, but I just sort of guessed at the time. So you probably get a chuckle of Andy giving me a grammar quiz to determine whether I was going to work there or whatnot. And I believe also, now that doesn't matter anymore, I believe I also might have cheated on the written portion, because I think there were some magazines around in the office and I took it. So I just chalk that up to of like, if you don't, that's up to you. If you don't clear the whiteboard or whatever, you're just begging for me to.
That's amazing. What magazines were they? Were
That's
they
my
just
own
old
device.
Game Informers?
I think so, yeah. I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was like, who developed this, who developed that.
Yeah, sure.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's all. I forgot
Google
you started
Eyes.
forgot you started as a web guy, because I know, Cork, you started as a web guy too. Did you guys ever commiserate over how bad our tech was?
I think we were like, he was in a different, older bad tech situation than I was, but I think they're just bad in their own unique ways. Yeah. Yeah, we griped a lot about a lot of things. Yeah.
We still do. We
Yeah,
still got it in us.
absolutely.
We can pull it out if we need to.
Yeah.
Well, Kato, what are some of like your most crowning achievements over the last? How long have you been here now? What's your year count?
22.
Holy
wow.
crap, dude! That's awesome.
I'm not sure. I was there at the website, and then I was let go, and they brought me back. And I know that Andy didn't call me to bring me back, but he had Fitzloff call me and sort of, do this sort of test balloon, like, well, what if, if maybe we were thinking of bringing you back, what would you say to that? It was like a weird.
That is very weird.
Hey, my friend
I'm
kind of
gonna
likes
come
you.
back.
You like him.
Yeah, it was really strange. Like, he doesn't want, he's trying to save face. He doesn't want to come in person. He didn't want to come kiss the ring in person or whatever. So he sent Fitzloff. I was just happy, like, yeah, sure, I'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
I need a job.
I'm doing. I used to go and do data entry for some medical stuff. I'm sure I never make any mistakes. No important mistakes. I remember going, and it's like you get the 15-minute break. we used to take the time to go down to my car, take like a 10-minute nap, and then back in. That's just how like absolutely mind-numbing it was. Of course, as you do over time, used to that. Then it was like there was just no, I couldn't skip these like random minute car naps.
Yeah.
Just became absolutely integral. Luckily, that didn't last long.
Yeah. Well,
but it's a crowning achievement. I guess I mean, I did my own column, which was pretty cool. I mean, I wanted to do that for a while. I guess just becoming the go-to on all that stuff, whether it be ball and whatnot. And I don't know. I guess I never had anybody accost me in public or anything, so I must have been doing, or maybe I wasn't doing. Was I doing something right? Was I not? I guess I don't really know. Depends on what you say, but seemed to, I guess, get along with most people, and most people seem to be cool with what I was doing. So I guess that's something.
I got a question for you, Kato. You're a big sports guy. Is driving a car a sport? You could settle that for me, huh?
Yeah.
Really?
It is.
Okay.
Well, and
that's it.
Just as a coincidence, or maybe not a coincidence, but through work, you've gotten to drive some incredible cars. Like, why is that a sport then? Is it just like feel more physical than, I don't know, something else?
It's reflexes. It's certainly it's knowledge. It is, it is a physical thing. It takes training. Even with that training, you're not going to still might not do well. It's certainly an organized sport, the way it's set up. No, is this the way you want to spend your last moments with me is hashing this kind of stuff over?
How about poker? Is that a sport, Kato?
I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
And that's all the time we have for this. Is this a sport?
It's been a pleasure working with you.
Well, you got that up your chest, though. I mean, you've been waiting all these years to just like get that one out.
I've just been so shy because when I go to Target, it feels like I'm participating in a sport when I turn the wheel, but I just wasn't sure. So I'm glad that you set me straight. Yeah.
You move your feet and your hands, Cork.
Exactly.
Sport.
I will say, this is a tremendous bummer because it feels like I'm always on the podcast when people leave. So then it's like when Tim left and when Hanson left, and I wasn't on. Was I one? Anyway, let's make it about me. But I just want to say, working with Kato has been so great. He was one of the morning crew people. We kind of have some people that started earlier, and he is a fellow parent, so he gets up before the 10:30 meeting. So that we crossed paths an awful lot and commiserated on stuff, and he was always just a great person to bounce ideas off of and get second opinions over. I mean, it's a tremendous loss, just institutional knowledge wise, and also just a great friend to have in the office and all that stuff. So it's a real bummer to hear that. It was not good news. So thanks a lot, Kato. Appreciate it. For your service and also for leaving us, you ass.
Yeah, there are
a tinge, a little negativity and melancholy in most of the things that I do. So, brand.
I don't know if you remember let's see, it was probably my third month working at the office, and we were both working a little bit later. I think we were the last two people in the office, but you came up to me and I'd just written a Need for Speed preview or something. I don't know. And you put it down. You're like, hey, you're doing a good job here. Your stuff's funny. You're informative. You're doing a good job. And I think you were the first person at GI to tell me I was doing a good job. And it just made me feel really welcomed, and I appreciated it. And I don't know if I ever returned the favor and told you did a good job, but I hope I did. But I appreciate you being in the office also because you were just a friendly guy and you would loan me stuff. I'm like, you don't know me, but you loaned me your Curb Your Enthusiasm DVDs early on, which was very helpful because I didn't have anything to watch at the time. And then you loaned me your Making of Star Wars books, which are amazing books, by the way. So I'm sad you're going to go because now I don't have anybody to borrow things from.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It was great, Ben, working with you in particular. And I think one of the things that is, regardless of me, it's nothing to do with me, but I think just the atmosphere of the office, I'm sure I've said this before, but nobody can really appreciate how, the talent that they brought in wasn't just about talent. It was also about, people. And the way that you guys work, we worked with times with, there was no ego. It wasn't about, any of that or whatever, made things very easy to be like, you know what, whenever you had come on, I was obviously working there longer than you were. It didn't really matter to me because that's just not the atmosphere we have. It wasn't this competitive thing. It was all just about, I'm going to work on Ben's stuff, maybe give him some pointers or whatever, and Ben's going to work on my stuff. And, he's going to make me a better writer. It didn't matter. I like in the meetings, you had a great idea, somebody else had a great idea. It didn't matter. We would just talk about, all those ideas equally and stuff. And so I think having that atmosphere, whatever it was I did say to you was absolutely true. And it's, it's why you're in this position you're in, because you've taken that and run with it, and you've made your own sort of future. And so I think I gave you some encouragement or whatever. Like I said, it was just because I knew that you were going to take things and you were going to make us better. And so anything to bring that out was good for everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Well, there's no great segue here, but Leo, why am I great?
Well, I think every single day I came over and told you what a great job you were doing. So
yeah, and I really appreciate that. And I didn't even have to pay you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also sad because you're leaving, and I got a frog in my throat. Maybe I'm getting choked up. But this feels like it'd be the joke part of the podcast where we all come on one by one and say we're leaving, but that's not the case. It's just these three guys. We swear we're going to be here next week. But Leo, what's going on, man?
Not much. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Nothing much.
Cool.
Just hanging out. Where are you going? Can you say?
Yeah. I'll be doing my own YouTube thing, as I said, Leo Vader on YouTube, and I'll be doing part-time stuff at MinMax. So it's like, obviously I've been watching them from the shadows for this whole time and been like, man, looks like they're having fun over there. Obviously we had fun too, but now it's like this opportunity to like have fun with people I love on videos about video games in like a part-time way that gives me time to focus on other things I've been wanting to do forever and been putting off. So it's really feeling like the right move right now, and I appreciate everyone understanding.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, you haven't been here quite as long as Andy or Kato, but
no,
I feel like you've been an important part of our company for the last 3 years and really appreciated your voice. And you came in on as an intern, actually. I got to be the head of your internship class, and Jeff Cork, you were kind of helping with that for a while as well. Were you part of Leo's term?
I don't know if I was. Let's just say I was. Yeah, I was. I was so good.
Obviously, you look up to both of us a lot, so that's why we're here.
Yeah.
But yeah, any crazy memories of the last 3 years? Like, what have been some of the most important times for you?
Looking back, I mean, E3 was always my favorite time of year. Like, I was excited to go this year, but even then I was like, I'm going to miss being back home, because being on the home team, not just because of the videos I was doing or whatever, which were fun, but like just the electricity of just constant video game news, and we were just doing back-to-back-to-back streams, and everybody was on the same page of like, we have to cover everything that's coming out this week. It's just like, it was such a thrilling week of the year. I always look forward to it, and I'm glad I got to do 3 of them in 3 years. And the other highlight would be the cover trips, for sure. I got to see some amazing places. Most recently and significantly was Warsaw with Cork for the Outriders cover. That was a good one.
That was your favorite trip?
No. No offense, I got horribly ill. Otherwise it would have been. What was my favorite trip? I think, as far as like perfect, every moment I couldn't believe how well it was going was my trip to see the Rainbow Six Major in Raleigh, North Carolina last summer. Fun interviews, got to meet Macy J, one of my favorite people in the scene, and it was just like, I couldn't believe how fun it was. But they were all great. I mean, me and you going to Sweden, Reeves, with JV. That was that might be up there too.
Rage 2.
For Rage 2, yeah. That was an interesting time because I've been saving money for a while now, but back then I was very paycheck to paycheck, and I just spent all my money on like a trip for the upcoming winter break. And that Sweden trip, I only had the corporate card to expense meals on and had $0 in my account besides that. So I remember like not being able to go do things with you because I was like, I'm sorry, Reeves, I literally have no money right now. And it was such a weirdly...
I didn't know that's why you didn't want to do it.
I should have just shown you my
statement. Because I went to this awesome museum that had an awesome like boat inside. It was like this ancient boat that they had preserved. I was like, this was awesome. Leo's going to love this. But yeah, you didn't want to come.
Yeah.
But now I know why, and I don't feel so bad.
Leo, you shouldn't feel too bad, Leo, because one time I was on a cover story trip and Ben Reeves was there, and at the airport realized he'd only brought his passport, but not his wallet. So we got to buy all of his meals the whole time. It was really great.
Yeah. You and Hanson. I don't think you guys were happy about that either.
Did we? Did it show? I thought we were doing a very good job of seeming put out.
Yeah. I remember that Sweden trip in particular, going back to Leo's story real quick. So not my embarrassment, but we went out for breakfast one day because we were like, all right, this hotel breakfast is nice. They have a lot of stuff, but we want to see a real Swedish breakfast. And we just walked around and all they had was, it looked like tiny coffee shops with pastries. And that's all we could find. And you seemed disappointed, Leo. I don't know if you were expecting something more. Do you remember this?
I was disappointed. Yeah, it was like every place was just like bread. Look at, we've got bread in the window. I'm like, cool. I'm sure it's good bread, but it's still, bread.
That's what Europeans eat for breakfast, man. They love bread.
But that was one of many times that trip where it was like, what a weird, insanely coincidental, lucky place for me to be in is where I can pay for my meals in Sweden and yet not have any money. Like still being able to do that was one of many, many amazing things this job has offered me.
You mentioned E3, and I think it was the first E3 that you stayed back. Well, you've always stayed back, sorry. But it was the first E3 you were working for us. And I was at LA, and we heard these rumors of like, okay, Leo and Quark are teaming up to do a video on like the top 3 Skyrims of E3. Do you guys remember this video? I just remember thinking it was such a hilarious idea because they had announced Skyrim was coming to Switch. They had announced it for VR, and I think it was coming to something else. And you ranked the top 3 Skyrims of E3, which is a funny concept and a funny video. So you should go watch it.
Yeah, a classic.
That was always my favorite part, is collaborating with Leo on stuff like that. And I feel like we didn't do it enough, regrettably. I know we did the E3 Kings last year, and I was looking forward to doing something similar this year. And then everything else happened, so...
E3 Kings was a highlight for sure. Just like me and Cork in the writer's room. That was definitely something I wish we could have recaptured more. But that's kind of a limit of the number of people we have in video, which hopefully should be increasing soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are very fond memories.
Did you have any highlights of things you worked on over the years that you would love people to go back and watch? Stuff that you think is just the best stuff you've made for Game Informer?
Pokey wrapping all the Super Mario Odyssey transformations, for sure. This is my most seminal video. I don't know. I have a...
That Rainbow Six one you did was really good, where you went back to the original trailer for it.
Yeah.
And just went back to it and like was like, what is all this stuff? None of this really made it into the game. This is completely different. That's a fantastic video. And it's really funny. Your other Rainbow Six Siege video where you talk to the map designer, I think, about all the really small details in one particularly, like you got hyper nerdy nitty gritty. It's hilarious. It's
Thank
so
you.
good.
Yeah, the Siege coverage I've definitely been proud of. I got to do a lot of that, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. And the fact that came out of like one of my first videos I did for Siege for Game Informer, not my first, but one of my first, was about just some event playlist they did, and it didn't even get that many views. But Ubisoft PR hit me up and was like, do you want to be on like our list for flying you out to California every 3 months to play the new season early? And I said yes to that. And it's like, it was an unbelievable thing to get to do for a game I played nearly every day for fun at that point. It was all my Siege content I've been able to do with Game Informer has been very blessed.
Yeah. Any memories of, excuse me, choking up again. Any memories of like meeting game industry veterans, or I don't know if you have stories too, Kato, but like any memories of people you've met throughout the years that you're like, man, I can't believe I got to meet this guy and I had this moment at a show or whatever.
For me, Suda 51, we did that Killer 7 Super Replay, which was a Suda 51 game, and halfway through, it was looking, after we'd already joked about getting him on that Super Replay, it was looking like he was going to be coming in to do an interview with Shay for the magazine. And so it oddly lined up where we got to do a bonus episode with him, and I wore a tank top that a fan had set in that said sexual, because that's what the first time you run into this weird NPC in Killer 7, he's wearing a tank top that just says sexual in pink font. And I wore that for Suda. And we introduced ourselves to each other, shook hands, went and recorded the episode. Turns out later he had no idea what the shirt was from, and he thought I was just dressed really weird.
That's what I was going to ask. That's amazing. He's like, why is this guy wearing this?
But I have a picture with him with that tank top, and that was an easy one for the Tinder profile, let me tell you. It was a lock.
Who's the guy this guy's standing next to you?
Yeah. Right.
What about you, Kato? You've probably met quite a few number of industry vets over the years, I'm sure.
Yeah. I would say the highlight is actually meeting Will Wright. It was at an E3. It was the Spore E3. You know, you heard all about this game and how it was the greatest thing ever. You know, we're just trying to wrap our heads around the concept, but managed to get in with, I think, both Andys into a session at EA. You know, it was one of those things that you have where, like, you hear about the hot game, and so, like, you beg the PR people, like, hey, can you squeeze me in? And it's like, oh, we don't have a lot of room. We'll see if you can get you in at 3:30 and all that sort of stuff. But it wasn't just the game or seeing or meeting him. It was just, you know, I think you guys have probably met him, but it was just his very just straightforward, humble demeanor. And he was, I can't remember how he said it, but he was basically giving away some stuff, and he had some, like, a Moonrock collection or something, and it was a fragment from it, and he just, you know, he introduced himself like, hello, my name's Will Wright, and you're just like, yeah, no, you know, of course, don't worry, I know who you are. But it was just, that's the way he came off. You know, he was just, couldn't be happier and more invested in just showing you, explaining this game, you know, without really any, you know, ego or pretense, and it wasn't like some big, you know, press conference, big deal. It was like in a small crowded room in the back of a booth that was hotter than hell. But that was just a huge deal. And, you know, as you know, the game, did it turn out? Did it not? I don't think I even played it. It was just one of those things where it certainly went from, hear about this guy and he's supposed to be the greatest thing, he's smart and everything, and I don't even really play games, you know, that extensively, but just meeting him and hearing him talk about his project and, you know, having that come through was extremely impressive.
Yeah,
that's and awesome. I later saw him eating breakfast in our hotel. You know,
oh, really?
The paper, just like we all do. You know, I think he was having some eggs. That was also mind-blowing too, you know.
He eats eggs?
It was eggs. I don't want to start a rumor, but it was normal.
What I love about that too is, you don't know this, but Andy told the same story when he was like his like last story of like, this is my most memorable moment. So apparently that was
pretty awestruck, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, guys, any final parting words for your last show?
Thanks.
Don't blow it. You're so close.
Thanks to everybody, both at work and in the community, for being accepting of me coming on so late and being such a prominent figure in our video output. Like, by far, people were very, very kind to me and very accepting, and it's is what gives me the relative confidence that I can go do my own thing and find success with it. So thank you all for making me leave by loving me too much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, thanks everybody for for reading, for subscribing. It just like I said, some sort of measure. I know that I know there's toxicity and stuff out there, but like I've never in 20 years I've never come across it. The most I've ever gotten is people would send me an email telling me I'd spelled something or whatnot. But like loved it when people would email me with questions, and I hope I got to all of them. Even in people in person, you go to the stores or you're just sort of hanging out, and people when they come up or whatever. And so thanks to everybody for being fans, and certainly all you guys. It's just so much fun coming to work every day, and even in the most hellacious deadlines or stuff was at its most up in the air and undecided or whatever, you'd wake up and you'd be like, all right, today's going to be a crazy day. I'm excited to go in and just take care of it, just get to work, because I knew that all you guys were exactly the same way. It wasn't a case of like, oh, okay, this person's getting a problem, or I got to butt heads with that person. It was just that like we were all so focused on the work done. Again, just stepping aside what needed to be just in the best interest of content. So that's extreme. That's very rare. That just doesn't happen. And I'm talking also, of course, about guys, old friends long gone, as they say. It's just been an amazing run.
Sure. Well, where can people follow you guys? You guys want people to follow you? How can they
don't follow me in person? That's just a little creepy. Do see you following me, I may run away. I'm on Twitter. You'll have to look that up. Honestly, I don't know my own Twitter handle off the top. I think it's just Matt.
Perfect.
Matt Kato, something like that. But so you don't want to commiserate about sports, or I'll retweet a lot of nihilist derbies. The fans out there, you want to get that darker take on things, but there's also some light in there as well. Just having fun. But anyway,
oh, perfect. Leo, what about you?
I'm Leo Vader on Twitter, Leo Vader on YouTube, leovader.com, DOTCOM on Twitch. To be clear, I've got a week left at Game Informer, so middle of next week, we'll do a fun farewell stream. So stick around for that. And then a week after that, I'll start at MinMax, so 2 weeks from now.
Perfect. Good to know. And then Cork, please don't leave. I need you.
I can't go anywhere.
Yeah. All right.
No, nobody will have me.
That's not true. All right. Well, we're going to take another break, and we'll be back for some community emails. And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. We're here to read your community emails, stuff you guys send in to podcast@gameinformer.com, questions, games, words of wisdom, whatever you guys want to send. We'll read it here. We are legally obligated. So podcast@gameinformer.com. I'm joined by Matthew Miller. How's it going, dude?
Hello there.
Welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I don't know that I've ever heard you call me Matthew. That is accurate, I guess, but yeah.
Do you prefer Matt?
I don't care.
All right, cool. And then we also have, Leo Vader. I thought you were leaving.
Oh, sorry. I couldn't find my door. I'm just going to stick around.
All right, well,
Leo's staying
right behind you. Just jump out.
Too high up.
I guess you're stuck. Might as well answer a few community email questions. And then Joe Juba, how's it going?
Great. Hi.
Great. All right, well, let's get started. What are we waiting for? Got the first one in here. Hi, everybody. This is Dave from Australia. He says, I was looking over some articles from The Last of Us 2, and I read a bunch of gamers are signing a petition to rewrite The Last of Us 2. From the article, it looks like people behind the petition, are upset that Ellie, a lesbian woman, is the main character. What I love about games is how they highlight diverse stories. I think that we have enough games where there are white, straight men as the main character, and we need more voices and diversity in games. What do you guys all think of this petition? And what do you think of diversity in games? And why do you think some gamers are threatened by this diversity? I figured I'd start off with just an easy softball for us. So what do you guys think?
One that shouldn't cause any problems for us to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like this person from Australia is kind of hitting it on the head. I mean, I think they've in some ways answered the way that I would answer the question, which is that I actually especially enjoy having experiences in games, just like with novels that I read. I enjoy having perspectives that aren't my own. Being a straight white male, there are plenty of places that I can experience that dynamic, including my own life. And so I don't know. I tend to enjoy opportunities to see those other things. I mean, stripping away anything about the politics around this stuff, or I'm just speaking personally, that like I actually really enjoy opportunities to play as a female character or play as somebody who's got a different sexual orientation, just because it's different from what I normally experience, and moreover, it adds a level of novelty to the entertainment experience that I'm having, just because it's different.
Yeah, and I think there's also, I mean, there's something dangerous about us. Like if you are a straight white man and you're upset about this, I mean, like there's something dangerous about assuming that your experience should be the default experience, and that there aren't other perspectives out there that you should be seeing. So from that angle, like I agree with Miller and what Dave from Australia said, in that like the more different viewpoints we can get in games, the better.
Yeah.
And then also, from the perspective of what do we think about the petition in terms of rewriting the game, I feel the same way about that I felt about all of the outcry about the Mass Effect 3 ending, which is just like let creators create the thing they want, and if you don't like it, like it's okay to not like it, but to make a creative demand that they change it to better suit your tastes, I think is ridiculous, and I wish BioWare had not folded to that.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
I think I haven't quite finished the game yet, but I'm pretty close, and being spoiler free, some of the stuff under that umbrella of diversity I think has made for some of the most interesting parts of the game's story. The stuff that they're doing, again, under that big spoiler free umbrella, I think is like really groundbreaking, and I've been really impressed by what they did. That being said, I wouldn't be opposed to rewriting Last of Us 2 and making it like 8 hours instead of 25.
That's what your petition would be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is long. I finished it last week and I was like, I liked it. It was long. But when I thought about it, I was like, is there anything I would cut? I don't know if I would cut anything. So good on them. But yeah, we're going to try to avoid spoilers for sure. But yeah, the topic of diversity in games, I think we're all in agreement here. Like, we should have diversity in games. I think some cultures, obviously we're not all from one culture, where we have your own culture that you're a part of, and like other cultures can feel foreign to you and alien. And sometimes that's uncomfortable or put you in an uncomfortable space. But I think that can be a good thing. Like, it's good to be out of your comfort zone from time to time and see that, you know, people have different ways of doing things. And maybe that's fine. We're all human. We all are in this together and trying to survive on this planet. And games are supposed to be fun. So
I just wish these people had a game they could play where they were a white guy.
Exactly. I don't know. It's hard to have that discourse with people sometimes, the people who are signing the petition. If you feel strongly about it and want to have a real conversation, I'd be open to that. But sometimes those conversations don't go well. So
yeah. Well, and I think it's also important to remember that it's not a zero-sum game, right? Like, if there are more games coming out that have, represent, people of different races and sexual orientations, gender identities, all of that, that doesn't mean that you are like that. That's just more different things that we can experience. That doesn't take away the other avenues that you have to get other experiences that you want. Right. Did that make any sense? That was a little rambly. Sorry.
No, made sense to me. What Great. So next question, Jared Barzy. He writes in, he says, hello, GI crew. He says, with the recent announcement of Pokemon Unite, I was thinking about how my desire for Pokemon content has been on a downward spiral for several years. He says that the recent release of Sword and Shield was extremely disappointing for me for a variety of reasons. I've been frustrated by a lot of fans and even reviewers who feel that the series is gives the series way too much slack for obvious shortcomings in game design, and I fear that the series will never change. Alas, it seems that Pokemon games just aren't for me anymore. And he's come to terms with the fact that after 20 years, he feels like he has to move on. So his question is, what is a franchise that has gone in that direction for you? A direction that you feel like you just don't agree with anymore, or something that you just moved away from as a gamer?
I think can I use a genre instead of a franchise? Can I twist the answer
he didn't
a little
say
bit?
genre. Yeah, I think that's
I have had that experience in some cases, not everyone, but in some cases with Japanese role-playing games, which used to be really fundamental to my gaming hobby. And I still enjoy a lot of Japanese role-playing games. But I've found over the years that the sense of repetition and the over-reliance on tropes doesn't do it for me. I think there's some people who really embrace that aspect of that genre and some of the specific franchises in that genre, that they like that it feels familiar, and that, you know, there's always going to be an amnesiac hero who, you know, is overly enthusiastic about food, like,
and don't forget a secret princess.
Like those sorts of things. Unless they have twists on them, they sometimes just start to feel stale to me, because both in my personal life and, you know, to a certain degree during my years at Game Informer, I've reviewed those games, and I've spent so much time with them that unless it offers an interesting twist on that expectation, I get a little bored. So that would maybe be my answer. It includes an umbrella of a bunch of franchises underneath of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've kind of narrowed down the formula that you know, the person who asked the question even pointed to with Pokemon. Like, I think a lot of that fatigue sets in, not necessarily outgrowing it because you've gotten so smart or mature or whatever, and just, I think that happens more often when a game just doesn't evolve, right? When a series just gives you the same thing again and again and again.
Yeah,
it just doesn't have the same impact anymore.
I think your tastes can probably change a little bit though too. Like my example is Devil May Cry. Actually, I was really into those first couple Devil May Cries, and I really liked the reboot from Ninja Theory, and the last one just didn't do it much for me. I tried playing it, and I find that I don't gravitate much towards those games. Like, I wasn't crazy about Bayonetta either, but I recognize that those games are well made and they review well. So I think they're good games. They just don't appeal to me anymore for some reason.
Yeah. That makes a good recent example for me, now that I'm thinking about it, is Saints Row the Third, which I just played. I mean, this is weird because it's not even outgrowing a series as much as it is a single game, which I really loved Saints Row the Third when it came out. And then when the remastered version just came out, that, like, to me, that humor does not stand the test of time very well, you know? So, like, if before I thought, what I want from a new Saints Row game is more Saints Row the Third. And now after replaying it, I'm like, that's not what I want anymore. Don't give me that.
And you know, I think there's something to be said for the reality that you know, back when we were kids, video games were primarily made for kids, mostly, and as all of us have grown older, so too has the industry matured and offered a breadth of experiences that is deeper and broader than what existed before. And I don't think there's anything wrong in any form of entertainment with your taste changing as you grow older, right? Like, it's not necessarily that, like, Pokemon is terrible now any more than some young adult novel series that you read when you were 13 and it really, like, spoke to you and now you read it again, you're like, this doesn't really do much for me, right? Because it spoke to you in that moment of your life. I think there's stuff that I played when I was in high school that I really liked because the characters were really like macho and sort of rebellious and kind of acted like badasses. And sometimes I play those games now, or I come across those kinds of games now, and I'm like, this guy's just an idiot. Like he's just kind of like full of himself, and he's like thinks he needs to be all broody, and it just kind of rubs me the wrong way. And then I remind myself that, not every piece of entertainment needs to speak specifically to me, right? Like that's okay. Which, by the way, circles back to our previous question a little bit. I think the more all of us realize that not every game and not every piece of entertainment needs to be for us, for me specifically, the better off we would all be. Because there's plenty of games out there, right? I mean, there's a lot of stuff to play. There's more than enough for any one person to be able to enjoy and still have a bunch of other things that aren't really a perfect fit for them.
Yeah.
Couldn't disagree more. Jumpstart Kindergarten. The puzzles are way too easy now.
Is that a game series? Is that a real thing?
Yeah. I used to play
You played it, right?
Yeah.
It's in your top 10 of all time?
Absolute classic. Not nostalgia at all. One of the best ever
It really
made.
lost me with Jumpstart Kindergarten 4. That's when it started to go off the rails.
Back to kindergarten.
Yeah.
Yeah. The execution mechanic in that one was very strange.
So I want to go off on a quick tangent there with off of something Miller said, because I think that people have a tendency, at least I know I did when I was like, let's say in my early 20s, that like a lot of your let's say identity, or like a lot of the people can define themselves a lot by the things they like. And I think if you hold on to that idea, it gets hard to outgrow stuff, right? If you think I am a person who likes Pokemon, I am a person who listens to this band, I am a person who loves these kinds of movies, and if you sort of like that can be useful when you're like figuring out who you are. But it's also important to not necessarily hold on to that rigid view of yourself and be okay with the perspective of like, maybe this just isn't for me anymore, and that's okay.
Personal growth.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Great. Well, moving on.
That's the advice section.
Speaking of growth, we're going to grow forward. Does that make sense? Matt Hinnekamp from Duluth, Minnesota. He says, with all the clamoring for a Mass Effect remaster, it got me thinking, do you guys think we'll ever see more planned trilogies in that model? Part of what I loved about Mass Effect was knowing there would be a significant story arc between games. In the mold of other fantasy stories, he's all over the place with this. In the vein of other fantasy stories like Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, stuff like that. So is it too much of a time investment, you think, from game developers, or why do you think we don't get more trilogies that like build off of each other?
Feels like Mass Effect came at a very specific moment in time where the development time frame that was needed to make a game could line up with a reasonable expectation that you were going to roll out a game, like once every couple years, you were going to get a game that could come out, which is not that strange from something like a trilogy of movies like Star Wars, right? Or Harry Potter movies, where you would expect a new installment every once in a while. I think it'd be a lot harder now to preemptively make that call, because it takes a lot longer to make a game, generally speaking, than it used to. It's a lot bigger risk and time investment, and you also don't know how people are going to react to it. There's plenty of games out there we could all point to that the first one was really cool and the second one like kind of fell flat, and to devote the future of your studio to this one idea that you're like, this is going to be a trilogy, this is all we're going to work on for the next 10 to 12 years, really, is what you're talking about. I think that'd be hard. Rising? What's that?
Remember Advent Rising?
Yeah.
That was another one of those. This is before Mass Effect even. They were planning a trilogy. They were working with Orson Scott Card, who's question mark there, but like That was like a big planned trilogy thing,
Totally.
space operatic thing. It was going to build off of each other, and the game just didn't sell very well, so they never made a sequel.
Right.
I also remember we were running previews in our magazine at the same time for Mass Effect and Too Human. Too Human.
Too Human.
So like, not only like Too Human is another sci-fi planned trilogy. It got real confusing. I remember at the moment, like, which one is that?
Which
the
is this?
BioWare
Because
one?
neither of them had come out yet, right? And so you were kind of trying to like, okay, which? Yeah, I totally remember in the office having that confusion in those first few months, trying to remember which was which. It's funny now because like one is a huge fixture in the video game landscape, and one most people don't remember anymore.
Yeah.
Well, people remember Mass Effect.
But yeah, I don't know. I think a planned trilogy would be hard. I don't think an actual trilogy that's something that happens to become a trilogy is impossible. For instance, Horizon, right? Horizon's had a great first game, was well liked. We expected a sequel. We've now gotten an announced sequel. And if that one is as good as the first one was, I'd be kind of surprised if there wasn't a third one. But that's a different approach, right? Like that's not like planning that ahead in that same way and announcing it publicly.
Yeah, and something that builds off of each installment and your choices matter. That's a whole another bundle of worms or whatever. Like that's a saying, right?
It's a worm bundle.
I mean, I know Miller will remember too. Assassin's Creed was a planned trilogy.
Yeah,
so, like,
totally.
So on one side of the equation, like what Miller was talking about, you have the uncertainty of like, will you release one game and it won't be a success? But then on the other end of that spectrum, you release one game and it's such a success that
it grows beyond the trilogy.
In today's landscape, you can't just leave. I mean, like, imagine if Assassin's Creed had ended after the third game. Think of all the money that Ubisoft would be leaving on the table with this like juggernaut franchise. And I'm saying from a business perspective, that makes sense. From a player's perspective, I want more planned content like that. And for the same reason that I love it in TV shows. I love that Battlestar Galactica is a 4-season thing. And that story was planned that way from the start. I like that sort of deliberate pacing because it, keeps you from having all of this, what feels like filler between the major, like big story beats.
Yeah.
I think it's possible that there's a lot of things about fictional world building and creating a brand that are just different now than they maybe were in the 80s and 90s and even the early 2000s. I think there's such an investment of energy and development that most places, and this is true, I think, in video games, movies, film, all sorts of stuff. Most folks approach it from an angle of like, let's build a compelling universe that we can do stuff in, rather than thinking about like, okay, we're going to make a trilogy or we're going to make a duology or anything like that of this particular entertainment medium. It'll instead be, okay, like our flagship thing is we're going to make this game. But on top of that, we're going to have an arm of collectibles. We're going to contract with these other folks who are going to do a comic book series that tells a separate story. We're going to have a novel that it tells the prequel tale. And like, I think just generally speaking, that is the way that people approach building out a universe these days. Because quite frankly, that's what the fan communities tend to want. They want to have that really richly imagined, built out universe that isn't dependent just on one particular medium and one particular release to be the entirety of what people experience there.
Sometimes I wonder how we ever had trilogies. Like, it just makes no sense for a studio in any entertainment industry to decide to do that, really.
Right.
What, artistic integrity? Come on. Give me a break.
We can't count on this. Well, speaking of bold new moves, Nick from LA, he writes in, Nintendo and NetherRealm have just announced an unprecedented partnership. This is not true. He's dreaming this up, by the way, but but imagine this happened. Your favorite Nintendo characters are coming to Mortal Kombat 11 as a DLC pack, which, as an aside, I think they can make this a whole game. It doesn't need to be DLC. Come on.
Yeah.
Who's coming over? And more importantly, what would their fatality be? He has a suggestion. He says, would Link impale someone with the hook shot? Would Mario eat a mushroom, grow huge, and then step on his foe? What do you guys think?
Those are pretty solid starters, aren't they? I like the giant Mario just stepping on somebody else. I like that.
I mean, if they're going to make Mortal Kombat with Nintendo characters, like Mario and Link are easily 1 and 2, but yeah, who else?
See, I like the idea of these characters from a company with a traditionally family-friendly image. I like the idea of them just being mortified by all of the violence around them. Like, I don't want them to have finishing moves and stuff. I want them to be woefully underprepared for the kind of combat that they got signed up for, right? Like Mario's like thinking he's going to stomp on someone's head, and instead he's like watching his brother get torn apart by Scorpion's chain spear thing.
Oh no!
Yeah, exactly. See, so that
would be with the amusing way for it to be.
So I guess
they
I'm
come in with
imagining
fire flowers and just get whomped.
yeah. So I guess I'm imagining this more of like a Gone Home style narrative experience in which you're watching all this stuff unfold rather than actually fighting.
I'm also imagining, I think, it going the opposite way and having Sub-Zero like run through Super Mario Brothers, and you know, just what his experience would be like there, having to face off against the Goombas and the Koopa Troopers. I think that would be strange.
So your guys' idea for a Mortal Kombat 11 DLC pack is like a Gone Home experience and like a side-scrolling platformer?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm on board.
I think what Yoshi does to people is already a fatality. I don't buy him surviving, going through his digestive system. Yeah.
I was trying to think, like, who's the most closest to an M-rated character that Nintendo has? I was going to say Wario.
Oh, it's Toad.
You think it's Toad? Why is it Toad?
I mean, he's like a clicker from The Last of Us, basically. Like the fungus growing out of his head is disgusting.
Oh, that's a good point.
He's a cannibal, also.
Yeah.
They don't talk about that much anymore. They kind of retcon that.
Yeah,
out.
that is a strange aspect of.
I'm not familiar. They were eating mushrooms in the early games. What are you?
Oh no,
about?
actual toads, like human toads.
Well, so I'm familiar with the story of like in the instruction booklet, the toads get turned into blocks, right? And so Mario's smashing all the blocks. He's like smashing the toads. But like in terms of like toads eating toads, is this something you're just screwing with me on, or what?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm the host now, Joe. You need to show me some respect.
Show some respect, Joe.
You're gonna kick me out of the podcast.
That's
Sorry.
right.
Sorry.
Well, those are all good thoughts. We'll submit that to Warner Brothers and see what they think.
I mean, I think Warner Brothers can just roll with that, right? They don't need any permissions or anything. They just use Mario, right?
Yeah, I think they're good. I mean, Universal is making that Mario theme park, so
there you
probably
go.
Don't get permission.
Tell us that.
All right. Reverend John Michael Schwartzgertz. Oh boy, sorry, Michael. He writes in from Knob Noster, Missouri. I don't think that's a real place. Dear crew, we're gonna miss Andy. I thought about writing in with something witty, but the truth is that it's going to be an interesting adventure without his presence, and I, as well as the Overblood group, will truly miss him. By the divine power invested in me, I open up GI Town for one final time, just long enough to install a statue of Andy McNamara. Beneath the statue will be an inscription from something he taught you or a favorite memory. What will that inscription be? What do you guys think?
We're going deep here, man.
His dog pooped near Leo's desk, like right when he started.
I mean,
that's not a joke. I remember that.
I worked with Andy for most of my career. So have you, Joe.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's wild. It'll be weird not having him around. I had a few years after college that I was doing some other stuff, but like Andy was the first person who gave me a job in the field that I was excited about working in, and then I just stayed here. I think for me it really is a matter of the gradual experience of learning about games and learning about how to think about games. is most memorable for me about my experience with Andy. People who haven't worked with him and who know him just through the podcast or through his writing or anything like that, I don't think have a perception, haven't had the opportunity to see just how thoughtful he is and how thoughtful he has always been about thinking about games and what games we push forward on our cover, and why certain directions in the gaming industry are things that he wants to support with the platform that we've had as Game Informer. And so I don't know, for me personally, that's where it goes back to. It's not some specific memory with Andy, but rather just a broad scope understanding of the way that I do my job and the way that I interact with people in the industry, and the way that I understand games from a perspective of elevating them and supporting them and helping the industry grow.
I think that all fit on the plaque.
Yeah, wrap around plaque.
Most, yeah.
I think you're about 10 times over character count. On
Sorry, I didn't know we needed to make it all pithy for the plaque. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Well, the plaque's bigger than the statue now, but that's fine.
No.
Let's see you do it, Joe. Give me like 5 words.
Oh boy.
He was loved.
Rest in peace. Wait.
Want to try it?
So here's, I don't have a good plaque. I don't have a good, like, his dog pooped up by my desk story like Leo does. But I guess my first real experience working with Andy is one that I'm not going to forget, because it was my first day at the magazine. This was in probably back in December 2003. And I'd met Andy during the interview process and stuff. I'd been hired. I didn't just show up. And I sort of sat down getting ready to start my paperwork for the day, to your intake work or whatever. And there was this huge editorial crisis, so that basically my first day was spent watching Andy storm back and forth through the bullpen swearing, because if I remember correctly, what happened was that we were putting together the top 50 for the end of the year, and Ninja Gaiden, the original, or not the original, but the Xbox one, was going to make the list. And then at the last second, they delayed it. So it fell out of 2003. So then it could no longer be on our top games of the year list, which ends up being this whole layout nightmare to redo if you're just taking out a game from there and trying to put something else somewhere to replace it, right? So yeah. So basically my first day, all starry-eyed and getting ready to work with all these gaming industry legends, was me just sort of sitting quietly in a corner watching everyone deal with a problem that I had no capability to handle or help with at all. I think Reiner just gave me some PS2 game and sat me on my desk and was like, "Here, see if this is worth reviewing." And that was that.
Perfect. You don't remember what the game was? Blocked it out of your memory?
I don't remember exactly. No. I think it might have been an expansion to EverQuest on PS2. It was not a high priority review.
Maybe it's going to be some kind of cyber plaque that scrolls the text by,
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's what we need.
I mean, ultimately, I think the real takeaway there is that was a sort of scary first impression of Andy, because I came in, my first day was sort of a crisis. Uh-huh. But over time, I came to realize all the stuff that Miller was talking about, which is he's a guy who just has some really valuable insight and perspective, and I'm just been really sort of grateful for what for the culture he's established at our magazine. And I don't think that leaves with him. And, especially with Reiner taking up the mantle now too. I think Andy will be missed, but it's not like what he built is gone, right?
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah, I think Andy would be the first to say that the thing that he considers not would be. I've heard him say that that he feels that the thing that he has been most successful with is the people that he has worked with and the people he's brought onto his team. I think that's not to be underestimated as a leader of an organization, of the editorial arm of a magazine and a media company. Like, he has always had an eye for the kinds of people who he can bring in, who can bring compelling perspectives and can add to a broader understanding of games for our audience. And so with him departing, those of us who are still here are, still a part of that dynamic that he's helped craft, of people who matched his vision for, how a person could talk about games, how an organization should talk about games.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, okay,
That seemed more heartfelt and bigger than I was just gonna say. I remember he liked Chipotle.
That's important too, man. Yeah.
We would go to get Chipotle every Monday for a good year straight.
Yeah.
When I first started, and then I think we stopped eating Chipotle as much because it's not as healthy. But sorry,
Okay.
Joe, you were gonna say something?
Well, I thought of a short one for the plaque, because anyone who's been listening to this podcast since Andy started hosting it a few months ago knows that he sort of has a self-deprecating sense about him. He will tell you that he's doing a very bad job and that he's sorry for it. But I think if you've been listening to the show, you know that is not really the case, and he's been a very good host for us. So I think what I would put under the Andy McNamara statue as a short plaque inscription is Andy McNamara, not as incompetent as he wants you to think he is.
I like that.
Better than he'd have you believe.
Yeah.
I remember when this is a recent memory, he just told us that he was leaving. Obviously, he told us before he told everybody else.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, man, I really appreciate you just giving me a chance and hiring me, and just thanking him because he hired me. He's the reason I'm here. And he's like, I've screwed up a couple times in my life, but I don't think I ever screwed up when I picked my team. So I was just that stood out to me. I was like, yeah, you know what? I think he was really good at seeing the value in people and also seeing value in games, and having a good eye for that stuff. So I'll always appreciate him for that. So Andy, if you're listening, thank you again. Leo, did you have anything else you want to share? Or?
Just the poop thing.
Okay.
No, obviously, I was thinking the same thing about him being self-deprecating. It's I hope that's a show, and deep down he's really proud of what he built here, because he should be.
Yeah. I hope he starts his own podcast. He could just start his own podcast and stories from my life, and just tell all the stuff that's happened to him throughout his industry.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever have the chance to, have a personal conversation with Andy, try to dig into. I mean, this is a guy who has seen and interacted with pretty much everybody involved with video games since the beginning of the 90s. There are very few people, I think, who probably have as broad of an understanding and appreciation of the ways the gaming industry has shifted and grown as what Andy has. He's got a lot of stories.
Great.
I mean, there aren't even many. I can't think of any other gaming outlets that have been around for 29 years, much less a single person who has stayed at that gaming outlet for that amount of time. So
yeah,
it's
true.
Okay, sorry, Ben, you can go on.
Well, no, I hope this isn't a bummer of way to end our time, but it felt like a fun way to bookend the show since we started with Andy leaving. And but yeah, that's pretty much our show, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for writing in. That's podcast@gameinformer.com if you want to write in an email or tell a story, tell your own story, ask us a question, or play a game. We were playing Kiss, Marry, Kill. I don't know if we'll continue that or not. If you want us to keep playing that or other games, let me know. I'll be reading the emails from now on, and I have all the power. So there you go. Thanks for being on, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you again next week. Until then, game on.
The shrug.
The catchphrase that just happened.